talk.
Hello and welcome to the third episode in Series 3 of the Magical World of G. Michael Vasey podcast series. And today we'll be continuing on with our conversation with Phoenix the Elder. If you haven't listened to the first part, I would recommend that you step back, go back to that episode so you get the fruits of the entire conversation, which in my opinion simply got better and better and better as the conversation wore on. Here again is Phoenix the Elder.
Let me ask you another sort of personal question, because over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I'll just point out that I am doing your online, monthly cycles, lunar monthly cycles work. In the last couple of 3 weeks, maybe a little longer, everywhere I go are feathers. White, grey, always very small, fluffy feathers. And I even found one that was beautiful. It had a black half and then metallic blue and black stripes. And at first I'm thinking, well, you know, Gary, it's just that time of the year when birds are dropping feathers probably. And then one morning I woke up and I got out of bed and I walked across the hall, and below me down were 3 small feathers in the hall. There's no bird in the house. And the other evening I went out to do a bit of energy tracking work with the dowsing rods, because I'm spending hours and hours and hours tracking these energy lines across Moravia. I couldn't find a line where I thought there should have been one, and it was a bit of a shock, you know. So I drove a bit further down the road and I saw a church on a hill, and I thought, hang on a minute, something's telling me if I go over there, I'm going to find where the line is. So I parked the car, I got my rods, I got my little notebook and stuff, and I opened the door, and the first thing I see on the grass verge was 2 small feathers, and I thought, yep, it's going to be here. What does that kind of a sort of messaging in physical reality, in your opinion, what does that sort of thing signify?
If we go back to sort of pre-pagan times, so the lineage is religion, and religion grew out of paganism, and paganism grew out of the goddess eras, and the goddess eras grew out of dreaming. So the dreamers and the dreaming is the oldest origin. Within the dreamers, if you go way back, we didn't have bodies. We just walked around in our soul astral body. Remember, everything on the planet except humans, they don't have a mental body. No bird, they don't have a mental astral body. Only humans do. That's why we mess everything up, in my eyes. So if you go back to the 4 or 5 basic dreamer symbols, the bird is number 1, because a lot of bird tribes came out of the dreamers into the, well, we'll go goddess, shamanic, and then dreamers if we go backwards. So when we manifested into the shamanic cultures on earth, the bird represents our soul. So when you have bird feathers, bird experiences, it's the flight of the soul. If it's a small bird, it starts out small. It's a giant bird. It can go into the mythological birds who are real, the Argentivis, things like that. So that represents the soul. So the next step of the second oldest symbol is the serpent. The serpent is the symbol of healing, the healing of the soul. Okay? So if you see a serpent on your path, you know, it can be a warning about it's not safe. You're not, you know, it's the absence of healing, or it's time to heal, you know. So you can see a water serpent, an air serpent, fire serpent, whatever. You know, it goes with the elementals as well. So they divide into very distinct. So that's number 2, bird, then the healing of the soul, which is the serpent. Then we go into the third, which is the fish, which is the nourishment of the soul. And fish can go into the collective, it can go into a stream, it can go into collective ocean, it can go into a lake. It has its own story as well. Then we go to the spider. And people, you know, say grandmother spider. Spider is the weaver that weaves the nourishment of the soul, the healing of the soul, and the soul itself. And then we go into a secondary group, which the horse is one of the big ones. It's about movement and so forth. But those are the four big ones from the dreamer and the shamanic cultures. And you'll see it everywhere in every culture, those four symbols of the soul. So because you got a bird, it means, okay, you need some freedom, you need some flight, you need some expansive, bringing your soul up versus the mind, mental body, talking to the channeling, whatever. So you will know in the moon of Leo, because last month was the 4 weeks of the last moon of summer and the Leo moon traditionally in astrology, you'll know that that moon offers you this teaching. So next year, when you get to the third moon of summer again, you will know that the birds will be around. Because in lunar work, unlike the sun cult or sun work, it's cyclical, it repeats. The sun is linear. You start, you finish at the end, right? You start at the bottom of the mountain, climb to the top. That's not the way it works with moon work. Moon work, as you've been reading and things that I have on my website, is that everything repeats. So when I started my moon work, I'd set an intention and do the 1 month moon work like you had last. Did you set an intention for last moon?
Yeah, it was.
Or
I won't say, but yes, I did.
Okay, you don't have to say what it is. So that intention will reflect what surfaced with the birds. Okay. Yeah. As long as that intention is about you. If it's about someone else or interpersonal, it doesn't work.
I strongly suspect that, again, I mean, I won't say because of people listening, and but I think that potentially it again points to this work that I'm doing with energy lines is somehow important for me. It just reinforces.
What I found, I've been down to the Nazca lines. I had a lot of work in South America, Central America, and North America, and that's why I live here. So when I went to the Nazca lines down in Peru, they're marked off. You can't walk on them because they are very healing, and they do heal and help heal the soul. And like your visitor said, the shaman. And a lot of those places are marked off, so you can't step into them. In my work up until 2012, when I said I finished my work in 2012 and had to do it, was to shut down the 12 Ring of Fire pyramids, because pyramids were built to shut down dreamers and shamans. And it's because it is the river of life. It goes kind of with the Milky Way, mythology, but it's on Earth. So it's the energetic. To give you an example, I have a friend who lives in California, not too far from Los Angeles, south of Los Angeles. And she had lived in a couple houses. She was an apprentice. The whole time I worked with her, she had lived in 3 different places. When I visited her in the one place, I was sleeping in her house, and I got up out of body, and I walked out into her front yard, and I looked at her house, and I saw this ley line like coming at me, all this like energy, like a river, just coming through her house and through me. And I'm like, oh. Behind her house was the viaduct of water. In California, everything's on a grid system. So they rerouted the water that had run for millions of years into these concrete viaducts, they're called, and it was going parallel to her house, behind it, where the actual water actually ran.
Yeah.
But the river was the opposite way. She had nothing but chaos in that house, because you don't build a house in the middle of the river. But because everything's on a grid system, they rerouted everything. Yeah. So I told her, I said, you're going to have chaos in this house as long as you live here. Remember, Egypt was a forest. it's a desert now.
Exactly.
And so some of these ley lines you're speaking about were waterways. Some of these ley lines are wind lines, so, which they mess with now with chemtrails. Some of these are fire lines, where like the magma of the earth releases energy, even if it's not come out in the form of magma. And some of them are earth, like forest energetic lines. So in your work, when you work, you have to determine what element you're dealing with and where. And, you know, in my work, what I teach with the moon work is mirror work, which means your communication and dialogue with nature.
Yeah.
That's
And
why
I call that
work,
connecting with the land.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself some questions. Am I dealing with an old water source here with these ley lines? You know, a lot of churches, they built churches on top of springs because springs are very
Yes.
sacred to
Yes, yes.
pagan and pre-pagan people. And so they wanted to contain it. One time I had email that came, and it was from a clock shop in Wickershire, Ham, England. And I'm thinking, why would this guy send me an email? Well, I looked up the region, and there was this church called St. Nicholas. Apparently, St. Nicholas churches have issues. They always burn down. And this this church had burned down. So I gathered my dreamers, the ones that I could protect and people I worked with. I didn't invite like people I didn't know. And I said, we're going to Wickershire, Ham, England, and we're going to find out what is going on in this area, because I just got this clock shop thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we all went, and then, you know, we get together in a group online or whatever and share what we experienced. One woman was in a torture chamber in the basement of that church, and she could see the spring, the water spring underneath there, the cistern or whatever. And she said, I was sitting in that cage, and she said, all this past life karmic pain came up. For me, when I went, I had a Roman soldier past life who was my most accrued karma, because I killed a lot of people in that lifetime. And, you know, just a big ego, kind of why I served the goddess this lifetime, to make up for what he did. And he was stationed in Egypt. But when I went on the dream journey with the group, I ended up going when have you ever done the mirror exercise where you look in a mirror with a candle and you just stare at yourself? Yeah. The first time I did that, I saw this 17-year-old young man's face come out of my face, because my eyes were moving around the room, but my head was looking at the mirror and with my eyes. And this young Italian looking guy who's about 17 was looking all around the room. And I thought, I don't know what this is, but I guess I'll find out. And so Zoom 10 years later, I'm with this group, and I go to the place where he joined the Roman army at 17. And he was in that area of Wickershire, Ham, when Rome had invaded England, Boudica's people, whatever. Yeah. And so for me, it was personal and collective, and it's always personal and collective. If I can't figure out the personal part of some mysticism, then I'm left clueless to what the true teaching is on an experiential level. So I make sure that it's connected. And that's what I teach on my moon work that you're a subscriber to in that work study. It opens up the mirror to not only yourself and your soul, but how you feel about things and what's driven in your passion with the experiences that you have. And if you keep doing this work, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So with the arrival of the birds, you know, I can shapeshift into anything I want in dreaming. That's the sorcery part. I remember first time I shapeshifted into a man, and I was walking by a mirror and I'm like, oh my God, I've got a cowboy hat and like jeans, and I'm this skinny, tall guy, and I am so not that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it happened to be with pulling down some dark energy in a local place where I was living at the time. So yeah, the mirror illusion is one of the greatest mysteries to figure out, because that's why I always tell people, call it out. Don't accept things for what they say they are or what they appear to be, because I'm a dreamer 24/7, 24 hours a day. But I had to do like everybody does in their journey, is for me, I had to kind of build the Milky Way bridge, in the Chinese teaching. I'm a big I Ching follower, and I do that as a divination. But building the slat of the bridge between you and your mystery, you got to be really careful and do one slat at a time when you mess with such big things like ley lines, because nature wants our help. Mother Earth wants us to help her, but she puts us through tests. When I finished my human disciplines and my human mastery and had a good anchor after my Roman soldier karma was done, which took about 15 years to actually work and heal on every day. When I got past that point, then Mother Earth was going to test me. You can't call yourself a shaman and not have life 20 years later bash you over the head if you didn't do the work, and I've seen so many people just run. So I was up for it the whole journey. That was just my fate and destiny. And so when Mother Earth, there's nothing more wicked than tests from Mother Earth. And every true shaman will not plant medicine or things like that, but people who have to go through the initiations of the earth, shaman is such a big word. It's like, it doesn't matter where you fall into all the different names of shamanism. If you're passionate about what you're doing and you want to delve into the place of the unseen, which holds the mystery, it's like the pre-manifested states. It's like the new moon.
Mm-hmm.
The moon's not there yet. It's all dark. You're looking for you. I say I've done so many paths in my own Slavic path, but I got to the point where I said, all roads of knowledge lead to the great ocean. They all leave you at the shore of the mystery of the great ocean. It's whether you want to get in and swim or not. I suggest starting to swim in a pond first, or a creek, or a spring, not go for the river. That'll like carry you down and rough you up. But that is part of the river of life. People are into the tree of life. I'm into the sacred water that falls from the sacred mountain. And even just understanding, as an artist, I always looked for information, not in words, but in imagery and in things that shine, and when they shine, it. Depends on how busy your mind is. That's why meditation.
What I'd like to do is ask you like a semi-final question, because this is important to me. And I guess the question is how important? Well, because the Slavs didn't really record anything, the Slavic culture, and particularly as it relates to Slavic mythology, the pantheon, and shamanism, I don't think there's that much known about it. So I just wondered if, for the benefit of people listening, what is the difference of, in the Slavic way of shamanism? What is different? Is it different? And what's important for people to understand about Slavic shamanism?
Number one, when you're on the emotional body and soul side, that statement wasn't valid, that the information's not there. And you learn that from the shaman guy at the ley lines, right?
Yeah.
You can extract everything if you make sure that you can understand that you have to weed through illusion. On the mind body side, as you know, there's so much information today. And does that mean there's the essence of knowing, which comes from experience, which leads to wisdom? So on this right side with the emotional body connected to the soul body, connected to the spirit, and I call spirit lightning, thunder, rivers. To me, that's spirit, because I've gone through since the 80s where people couldn't even say the word soul. They go mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, this or that. The soul is elusive. It's not real present. You get a little bit of it inside. When your mother dies, it's like that is like an unused muscle. So in my journey, the things that were not knowledge or not written, that were sort of a drive that I had to live on this side of the feminine or the moon, there are access points to be able to fulfill that part of your destiny. It's like if someone's really angry at you, all you have to do is touch their hand. The body has a touch that can soothe or can rage. But if you hold on tight enough, it dissipates. It's like water. Water purifies everything. So on this watery side, information runs through those systems. So any culture, including Slavic culture, that is before written and is in the oral tradition, you start writing poetry. You start writing stream of conscious. Just write.
Yeah.
You start meditating and then chanting. You start singing in the shower. You start drinking water blessed by the moon at night. You start doing things on emotional body, soul body, and spirit of the planet. And it begins like, how in the Slavic traditions, fog and mist is such a big thing. There is and they're not shapes like human. They're just out of the blue. I remember one time I was living at the California-Oregon border, and I was driving down the road to home a lot and going to the grocery store or whatever. And there was always this little field, and I was like, there's something special about this. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an Indian burial ground along the road. But one time I was driving midday. It's always sunny there and 80 degrees, 90 degrees. And there was a mist in the middle of the road, right by the mound. And I thought, okay. I connected with my Slavic spirit. I know all my past lives, and this lifetime is the Polish-Ukraine border people, my family. I consider myself a soul first, rather than connected with a particular teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So the information that's there can only come out through the divinity of art. I mean, the oldest profession on the planet are the cave paintings.
Yeah.
The artists have been the carriers of the story before writing, and it goes way back. So when you look at an image, or you draw a picture, or you write a poem, or you sing a song. One time I led a journey, and there was a couple that kind of showed up out of the blue to the place that I had led it at. And the mystical place said, oh, these two people are traveling through, can they join your journey? And I said, sure. So I said hello to them. And as I was talking to the girl and her boyfriend, behind her, this butterfly was just flying outside the window behind her head. And I thought, okay, thanks, butterfly. That's what I mean by visuals. So when she had taken her journey, she had her own journey, but as you know, who I am, I go in and I look at a deeper level and see what I need to see. When I went into her dreaming, this soul retrieval or whatever, I saw her crouched down, holding her knees with thorn bushes all around her. And she didn't know how she was going to get out. And I see this butterfly come in and go through the thorns and didn't scratch its delicate wing and landed on her knee. And she saw it, which is good for her. Most people wouldn't see it. And the butterfly taught her how to move so she could avoid the thorns in life and have some grace. So once she got out of the thorn bush, and I'm just watching her journey, whether I come into your dream and watch you, which I don't, unless I have permission. If it's dark, I can do things without getting karma. If it's not, then everything's karma. So she got out and she had this ancient outfit on as a woman, and she started to dance this butterfly dance, which was a language. And then some other women joined her, and then they traveled to another tribe, maybe 100 miles away, and they communicated through their dance the story that their tribe wanted to tell them, even though they could talk. It just wasn't, it was before written language. So when I told her, I share with everyone, that's how I trained myself. I would have a group of 30 people. I would go into the first person's journey, see what I needed to see, their story. Then when I'd go to the next person, I'd memorize their story and then memorize the second person's story I'd see. And then I'd go 30 people and have 30 stories. Because I'm a dreamer, it's easy for me to memorize visuals and stories because I'm an oral tradition person. And so when I told her that story, she's like, I love to dance. And I was thinking about like really getting into belly dance. And I said, oh, it goes a lot deeper than that. I said, you're an ancient storyteller dancer, long before written language. And I said, all you need to do is watch the butterflies. They'll tell you exactly where you're at that day. If it's gray butterflies, brown butterfly moths, you're in the middle world. If it's a black butterflies of any kind, you're having a hard time, you're associated with shadow, or you're going to be today. If it's light butterflies, colorful, you've raised your vibration a little bit today. So I said, just let the butterflies teach you. They'll teach you how to redo your dance. Remember, moon, remembrance, mother, memory is all on this emotional side, and this soul side, and this spirit side. And this is how, if someone is truly interested in the pre-written Slavic teachings, I've gotten a lot of them. I'm a dream walker, so I can actually walk back as well.
Mm-hmm.
The deal is I can't enter Moravia unless I touch your hand. I had a lot of work to do in Saudi Arabia and things like that. Just happened to meet 3 guys from Baghdad one Christmas week. It allowed me entrance to the whole state of Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia because I had work to do. So if I hadn't met them, no, I probably wouldn't have had access in my dreaming. So think of dreaming as your creative right side of your brain, or whatever, what people call it. And as long as you keep your notes.
This is my dream journal.
Yay, I'm so happy you're doing that. So write a note in your July that is your bird month, because that's the month of the 13 moons. This year we have a 13 moon. Last year we didn't. And the 13 moons are real moons that last between like 7 days and 3 weeks. And there's actually no moon. But you have to that's why I mastered meditation, for observation. You can't look with your mind. You have to look with your soul. And you'll see a whole lot of things going on.
This is my lesson, is to look with my soul, with my emotional side, and not my mental side, because I'm very mentally astute, very much a critical thinker, and it all it does is disturb me, because I see other people not thinking but just walking into oblivion due to the narrative, the constant beat of the narrative, which isn't healthy, and I get upset by that. And that's a different topic. How could someone get in touch? Sorry?
Master Zen, because Zen is the most difficult meditation out there.
Yeah.
It's zero thought.
Yeah.
I had taken a metaphysical practice that I had done, and I merged it with Zen, and I mastered Zen in 4 years. Now that leaves all these other things open, which is hard to deal with. But if you really want to get your mind under control, that's my last.
I've been doing some exercises proposed by the Czech musician Franz Barden. Don't know whether you come across Franz Barden, but he has a series of mental exercises where you think of nothing for as long as possible. I've been doing some of those, and they are very helpful. Now, if people would like to find out more about you and what you're up to, and maybe participate in this moon cycle work, how would they do that?
My website is eldermountaindreaming.com. My articles are for subscribers only, but everything else is up. Or you can go to Facebook, same thing. I don't have a phone that I can use for Instagram where everybody's at. So I'm on Facebook at Elder Mountain Dreaming /Elder Mountain Dreaming. And I post some of my articles on Facebook, just random thoughts or things that because I live every day with the synchronicities. So I'll keep a loaded journal and add some teachings there sometimes. So those are basically the two. And if you want to join in this practice of the lunar work study from the website, it's very ancient. My work this lifetime was to bring that pre-pagan work back as a dreamer. And it's very powerful. I've been doing it for 35 years. I still set my intention and work by the moon because it's always cleansing. And if Buddhism is for the mind, this work is for the soul. It's a consciousness practice for the mirror of nature and the soul. Because if you look back at all sort of imagery of the feminine, it's the goddess, woman, nature, animals, so forth.
And also the great bitter sea, the great ocean, which you talked about jumping into.
Oh. The water is, you start with the creek, right? And so that's what I do. The one thing I have is that anyone who wants to work with me has to be sober. That's been a rule in the kind of work I do, because I'm like Neptunian, things are, there's no natural boundaries with the life I live. That's why I practice healthy boundaries all the time, energetic boundaries, you name it. So people who work with me have to be sober during that period of time that they work with me. And a lot of times, I can say almost always, it heals 50% of their problems right away, within the first year, things they struggle with. So I'm a healer, and this is a healing practice that you can do that goes deeper and deeper. And, you having the bird feathers come, because you've been doing this practice a year, right?
Almost a year,
yeah. And so the first year, you should see what happens at the fourth year, because, in cycle work, things go in increments, 3 years, 4 years, 8 years, 20 years. They go in big increments when we grow spiritually. You can't have all the answers at the beginning of the journey, right? You gotta grow along with it.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you are interested in finding a little bit more out about Phoenix, please do visit her website. You'll find that at eldermountaindreaming.com. You can also find her on Facebook, Elder Mountain Dreaming, and you can find a number of links below as well in the text part of this podcast, telling you how you can find out more about her and even perhaps subscribe to her website and join me in doing her monthly lunar cycles. I found it very rewarding, and I'm sure you will too. Once again, thanks to Phoenix the Elder. Thank you for listening. Please do like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. It all helps. This is G. Michael Vasey saying goodbye.